Well, we are getting new information this morning about fundraising and spending numbers by the federal Conservatives in the lead up to the last election. The party raised a record amount last year. Olivia Stefanovich is in our Ottawa bureau tracking the details for us this morning. Good morning, Olivia. How much did the Conservatives raise and where did they spend it?
Good morning, Crystal. Well, the Conservatives hit a fundraising record last year. This comes from new filings with Elections Canada, and they show that the Conservatives raised about $42 million in donations, $5 million in membership fees, for a grand historic total of $48.5 million in 2024. Now, much of this went towards advertising. In fact, the Conservatives, according to these filings, doubled the amount of money they spent on advertising on TV, radio, and digital ads from the year before in 2023. And these filings also show that the Conservatives spent almost as much money as they raised in 2024 ahead of the federal election. Now, this isn't that surprising given the fact that the Conservatives were seeing so much momentum heading into the federal election, especially since a Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, since he became the leader of that party just about 2.5 years ago. So we saw this upswing in support for the Conservatives and a lot of frustration with the Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau. The question, though, that these filings raise is whether the money was spent effectively for the Conservative Party, because even though the Conservatives did make gains and won in ridings in the federal election that some Tories didn't even think were possible, the Conservatives still lost the federal election, came in second place, yes, held the Liberals to a minority, but even Poilievre, he lost his own riding, which he had held in Ottawa for 2 decades, Crystal.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, Pierre Poilievre doesn't currently have a seat in the House. He is slated to run in a by-election in August, but he's still the leader of the Conservative Party. Where does support for him currently stand?
Well, publicly, there is still a lot of support for Poilievre, but behind the scenes, that's where it's getting a little unclear. We are hearing some grumblings from Conservatives, even at the Calgary Stampede, which is usually a Conservative-friendly event. There were reports that surfaced that Poilievre wasn't given as warm of a reception as some people had thought he would get at an event like that. However, you know, he's not in the national spotlight right now, since he's still trying to get a seat in the House of Commons. So perhaps it's not entirely unusual, but he certainly has some challenges ahead, according to insiders who spoke to CBC's Power and Politics. Have a listen.
But I think as time has passed and the spin of, best silver medal ever has also passed, people are thinking, okay, Carney's doing all right. He seems to be carving into certain aspects of the right. Is Pierre Poilievre the person to take on this particular leader? For Pierre Poilievre, he's got to have a really strong showing, I think, in this by-election. There's no reason to suggest he won't.
Now, Poilievre will face this by-election next month in the riding of Battle River Crowfoot. This is seen as a Conservative stronghold. It was most recently held by former Conservative MP Damien Couric, who stepped aside so Poilievre could get back a seat in the House of Commons. Now, Couric has gone on to work at a public relations firm called the Upstream Strategy Group, and Poilievre is actively campaigning in that rural Alberta riding. He will also face a leadership review early next year in Calgary, and it will be ultimately up to Conservative members and Conservative caucus members to decide his future as the leader of this party. By all accounts, publicly, we do hear a lot of strong support for Poilievre, but he is, again, facing this vote coming up in just a couple of months. He has an opportunity now to win back a seat in the House of Commons, though, in the next couple of weeks, and refocus, if he is able to win, and return to the House of Commons and get back into the national spotlight, Crystal.
Olivia, thank you so much. Olivia Stefanovich reporting for us in Ottawa.